You are listening to Smaller on the Outside, the first, best, and only 24 podcast that you just can't miss. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and visit our webpage at sotopodcast.wordpress.com. The following takes place between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. on the day that Kim Bauer got in trouble.
Wait, no, that's every day.
Not every
You
day.
need something a little bit more specific
There's
than
nothing
that.
specific about this season.
Or on the day where Tony came back. How about that?
Fine. Tony got back. Alright. Hello, welcome to Smaller on the Outside, or as I like to call it, SotoCast. My name is Dave. I'll be your CTU agent this evening. With me, as always, is the analyst.
Andy.
That is correct. And today, we just finished off the 7th season of 24. But before we get into that, let's talk some announcements for the day. First of all, because it is now the 28th of April, the first edition or volume or whatever you call it of the 24 prequel comic before season 9 starts has released already.
It's great.
It's fantastic, you know, great art, great writing. But I'll talk more about that next time. But also, the Kurt and Jeff show, they gave us a shout out back after we gave them a shout out. They talked for a few minutes on our show, so we just wanted to thank them, give them a listen because they're more popular than us. And
All right.
also, I've noticed on Stitcher that it's not a big number, but I have seen that we are adding on other people's playlists.
Cool.
That is cool. Obviously, it's very anonymous site, so you have no idea who's listening to you and who's not. It's probably Kurt and Jeff.
It was one more subscriber.
Yeah. Oh, and and we got some news for next season of Smaller on the Outside, not 24.
I was gonna say I don't want to hear spoilers.
No, next season of Smaller on the Outside, season 4 of us, Timbot is returning to the show for Live Another Day.
We're hoping.
Well, we're working on repairing. Yeah, we're reconstructing him. He's gonna be a little bit more advanced, a little bit more upgraded. I just hope that he doesn't die by the end of of season 9 of 24. It could happen.
He may not be completely 100%.
He may be a little flawed. But that's normal. That's that. Those are our updates, our announcements for the week. Before we start with season 7 discussion, let's talk about 24 Redemption. 24 Redemption is a TV movie that came out between season 6 and 7. It was 2 hours long, about, and it
without commercials. The original was like an hour and a half because that's usually how long 2 episodes are. But if you get the DVD, or if you watched it on Netflix before it was taken off, then it is about an hour and 45 minutes long. So there is an extended version. And and then how it basically has played out. Jack is in Africa. He's in this country called Sangala. It's a fictional country. And basically, it was a huge PSA for the African whatever. Rwanda or whatever was going on. Where the kids
are forced to be battle slaves and soldiers and stuff like that, and Jack has to pretty much free these kids.
Yeah.
It's a couple bad guys that you need to keep track of in this. There's
Dubaku.
Dubaku's one. Was his boss in the Redemption?
They talked about him. What's his name again?
Juma.
General Juma is Dubaku's boss, and he's in Redemption for a little bit, but it's mostly Dubaku.
Okay, and
Dubaku and his brother.
Yeah, so there's those guys. And it kind of cuts over to the White House area where
Hodges is also in it.
Hodges is in it as well. We don't know too much about his character at this point. Jonas Hodges is played, of course, by Jon Voight.
They set up the story with the president's son.
Right, and that's where they go over to Washington D.C. We're talking about the son, who dies.
Well, the reason for that is this guy who is the son of the president has a friend, and this friend guy, he found this evidence that the government is working with terrorists or something like that, and he was looking up that evidence, and then that guy gets killed. And then, so supposedly later on, the president's son was probably looking into why that guy got killed, and then that ended up getting him killed. That's not shown in Redemption, but we know that happened between Redemption and Season 7.
As far as Jack's story goes, people from DC are trying to get him to return so he can answer for the crimes that he's committed and stuff like that. Torture is the main the main one. And he doesn't want to go back, but he's kind of forced to because he needs these kids to go out, and this guy blackmails him, listen, I can let these kids go free, but you're gonna have to hand yourself over, and well, that's what Jack does.
Basically, there was a guy that Jack was working with. Jack's been kind of going all around the world, traveling from country to country, trying to find himself or something, and I think he's kind of bummed out about the things that have been happening recently, and he wasn't really up to going back to CTU or doing his job. He just wants to escape, and he's been traveling to different countries, and the latest country is this Sangala, where he was working at this school that Mr. Gold.
Oh, that guy, the guy who's in Once Upon a Time, he was in Stargate. SGU, I don't know.
I didn't watch that show, so I don't know. But he was building a school, and then that guy dies because of Dubaku.
Yeah, but Dubaku lives. He lives.
It made it look like he was dying, but he got out. Dubaku got out and started chasing after Jack and these kids. And so in order to honor his friend's legacy of that school, because the school got destroyed, but the kids got out. So in order to honor that legacy, Jack made sure those kids got out of Sangala.
Right, and then, he handed himself over. As far as the movie as itself, it's kind of pretty dull. Jack himself doesn't really act like Jack, violent action hero Jack until at least it's halfway done.
I think it does a good job setting up the story for season 7.
It's a very, very long prequel, is what it is.
Yeah. I think it's a better prequel than previous prequels. I think it does a better job setting up the plot than other prequels have done.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's a lot of plot lines that it starts in Redemption that eventually get resolved in season 7.
All right. So that was the prequel / 24 TV movie that took place before Day 7. So now let's talk about 24 Day 7, the one.
And we can kind of talk about the behind the scenes on that. So Day 7 was originally going to premiere in 2008, but the writer's strike
happened.
Yeah. Writer's strike happened. By the time the writer's strike happened, they had already completed, I think, 6 or 7 episodes or so, and maybe even 8. They decided they could have continued working on the show. They had some scripts written, and they could have continued working on the show, but they decided to stop because they were never going to be able to get all 24 episodes done by the time they needed them to be done. So they decided to postpone season 7. By this time, there were already plenty of trailers that showed a lot of the spoilery stuff about it. They decided to postpone season 7 another year, and instead, once the writer's strike ended, they made 24 Redemption, and then went back to working on season 7 so that it would premiere a year later.
Yeah. A lot of things actually kind of sucked as far as this writer's strike screwed everything up for everything. But yeah, after that happened, Day 7 finally aired.
I think they made the right choice, though. They could have gone with a 16-episode season, but that wouldn't really work for 24. Although it may have made the season better.
Yeah, true. So season 7 is the one in Washington, D.C.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Let the record show this is the third day of the Senate hearing investigating human rights violations by the recently disbanded counter-terrorist unit. Will the witness please state his name?
Jack Bauer.
Mr. Bauer, did you torture Mr. Haddad?
Don't expect me to regret the decisions that I have made. Because, sir, the truth is, I don't.
Benjamin Juma has slaughtered over 200,000 of his own people. That number will continue to grow if we don't stop him now.
Mr. Bauer, we have a national security matter that has gone critical. One of the men behind this threat is someone you know.
That's not possible. Tony Almeida is dead.
Jack Bauer. Didn't know you were FBI.
Nah. Just came along for the ride.
This January,
your government is about to pay a very steep price for interfering in our affairs.
television's greatest thrill ride is back. For a day that will stop the world.
What the hell do you want?
I want you to see what we can do.
It's been a while.
They're going after air traffic control.
Put me through to the White House.
It's worth the wait.
Are you with the FBI?
No, I'm a stay-at-home mom.
The president doesn't comply with his demands. Dubaku is going to start killing Americans.
Madam President, you need to order the pullback.
I won't be dictated to by this madman.
Emmy Award winner Kiefer Sutherland.
The FBI has been compromised. There's a leak.
They've got a shooter on top of the Columbia building heading south.
In the most critically acclaimed series on television.
Get up! So help me God, I will kill you, and you will stay dead this time.
24, the two-night premiere event, begins Sunday, January 11th on Fox.
It is. To set up the season, Jack is now, he's in Washington, D.C. He's followed through with turning himself in, and he's in front of a committee to talk about himself. Allison Taylor is the first female president.
Which again was also, they showed the beginning of that in Redemption.
She was in Redemption as well.
They showed the transition between Noah Daniels and Allison Taylor, which I thought was really cool.
The terrorist whole thing with the terrorist is confusing this season. Just know that one of them's Tony. He's back.
Yeah, and you get to see what's the actor's guy's name again?
Carlos Bernard.
You see Carlos
Bernard. Yeah, you see Carlos is Bernard. Now you see his name on the screen 10 seconds before he actually shows up.
But the reason they did that is because Tony was all over the previews for over a year.
Everybody knew he was going to be in it anyways, so it was, it was very much like something that happened in Prison Break.
It was a spoiler, but
it was an actual promotion set out by Fox.
Yeah.
Saying, listen, guess who's coming back? Tony. You thought he was dead, but you don't know Tony.
Yeah, but so, it was like back in 2007 they were showing previews with Tony in them, so.
Yeah.
Almost, a year and a half.
But basically, what you should also know is CTU is disbanded at this point.
Yep.
So
that was part of the reason why they were wanting to bring Jack back, because they were taking down CTU and then taking down all these people with it, and Jack is the biggest one.
Yeah, and so I can't really say the new CTU characters, but I will say the new good characters here are Renee Walker, that's a big one, Larry Moss, and Janice.
There are no new CTU characters.
There's no new CTU characters because there's no CTU, really.
Well, sort of.
There's a fake CTU.
There is a group that calls themselves CTU, and that is Chloe and
Bill.
Bill.
And no,
They're
the blind Doyle is in the background.
The first twist of the season is that Tony is actually not a bad guy, but he's working undercover with Bill and Chloe to try to uncover some conspiracy about Dubaku.
I set that one up here. Jack, he's under investigation, and he's taken out of the investigation by Renee. Because she needs his help to find Tony. Because he has history with Tony. Apparently, that gives him the information they need to find him. Because he's now a quote unquote terrorist. And basically what Tony does is he kidnaps an engineer to create a device called the CIP device that allows Tony to pull a Die Hard 2 and hack into Airport Command Center and like crash two planes together if he wanted to.
Yeah, he can direct them into paths that would end up crashing with each other.
Yeah, but he doesn't do it. He just kind of shows off his power to get them to do whatever he wants. But Jack does a little investigation, and he eventually does find Tony, and that's when he finds out Tony isn't a terrorist. He takes him into custody, and then he gives Jack a number to call. He calls it, and it is faux CTU with Bill and Chloe. I'm saying
They call themselves CTU.
yeah, they call themselves CTU because they don't have anything else to call themselves but hacks. People who are
They're outside the government.
they're outside the government. They're all doing this.
They are unofficial CTU.
Tony, he's being the deep undercover guy that is basically acting as a terrorist, but it's not apparently.
That's great, David.
I know, right? So basically, Jack has to break Tony out of FBI, and then they both go undercover as terrorists to get to kidnap this guy named Matobo to get Dubaku.
This guy was in Redemption. He is the Prime Minister of Sangala. He was elected Prime Minister of Sangala before Dubaku and Juma started attacking Sangala again and basically forced him out of the country.
Right. Eventually, Renee gets in on this after she figures out that Jack is a quote-unquote terrorist, follows and finds him, and then he acts like he kills her. And then she's in the gang because, I
Bill
guess.
and Chloe pick her up, dig her out of the ground.
And then they all, at this point, Jack has kidnapped Matobo to get to Dubaku. And then they are able to, I guess they find Dubaku's current hideout place where he has the CIP device that Tony apparently gave him, or something. I don't know how the CIP got to him, but it did.
They showed that at some point, I think.
But the whole point is Tony's trying to get to Matobo. So
No, to Dubaku.
Oh, I mean, yeah, to Dubaku. He needs Matobo to get to Dubaku.
Right, but which...
It doesn't make any sense because he gave the CIP device to Dubaku, right?
I don't remember particularly exactly what happened, but I do think he did give the device to Dubaku, or maybe his contact gave the device to Dubaku.
I don't know. Dubaku has the CIP device, and they need to get to Dubaku. They find his hideout, and when they raid it, the CIP device actually gets damaged, and it's broken at this point. And that's the end of the first act. The second act had to do with Dubaku kidnapping the first gentleman, Henry Taylor. And he does this to control Taylor, President Taylor, into not attacking the country of Sangala.
And she's attacking Sangala because of Juma and Dubaku's their whole war with attacking the citizens, trying to go against what the citizens elected, as well as the whole child army thing. They're trying to stop that from happening.
So another raid occurs. Jack finds out where Dubaku is hiding this time, and he tries to raid the area. Dubaku escapes once again. President's husband is shot in the process, but they get Dubaku. Is that right? Yes, they get Dubaku. They don't get Juma. They get Dubaku, and they get Dubaku because of his girlfriend, right? They find out
a couple episodes later.
Yeah, they find out he has this girlfriend, this American girlfriend, that he's trying to take to Singalam or something.
No, he was gonna take her to somewhere in South America, I believe.
Yeah, and they get to the girlfriend first, and they treat her like bait because that's Jack's only play. She gives away the fact that she knows he's a bad guy, of course, and then this struggle happens.
Dubaku figures that out before and basically calls her out on it.
They're both in this car, and it flips over another car.
She takes control of the wheel because she knows the FBI is chasing them and he's about to get away.
Yeah, and the car they're in flips over another car, lands on its top, and then...
She dies.
She dies, of course.
Dubaku does.
Dubaku doesn't die...
He gets out enough to say, because Jack threatens his family, and so he tells them that he has a list of names.
Yeah, he has a list of names of people in the government that he has control of or are working for him, and that's apparently in his stomach. You see this little this protrudent in his stomach that Jack cuts out, and he finds this chip that and then Jack thinks the threat is over. It is actually. That's the end of Act 2. And then Tony meets up with him and says, "Listen, Jack, there's a new threat in play." Okay, so we're into Act 3 now.
Really?
Yes. Dubaku has a list of 100 or so traitors, and one of them is Senator Mayer. That's the guy who was interviewing Jack. His right-hand man, Burke. And that's one of them. This is like the third mole of the season already. And Jack goes to the White House to interrogate Burke and telling him what the target is of the next attack that Tony told him about. Little does he know that the target is actually the White House itself. So even after the president orders him to stop, he uses his stun gun to shoot the phone dead and continue with his interrogation. Needless to say, Jack is taken into custody before he could get the location, but soon after, Renee calls in with the information that the White House is actually the target itself, and then there wasn't any even Channing Tatum to save the day.
Or Gerard Butler.
Or Gerard Butler. So Jack takes the president into a safe room, locks the door, and that doesn't last long because when the captors find President Taylor's daughter, who was there...
Which is funny because we just had a scene... We didn't really talk about it, but there was a scene like that earlier in the season with Matobo as well. Safe... What is it? The panic room, yeah.
Yeah. And they take President Taylor's daughter, Olivia, and they threaten to kill her. Of course, the president opens the doors and is taken captive. But yeah, at this point, we're asking ourselves, whatever happened to the White House bunker?
Yeah, the last 3 or 4 seasons, they've had very prominently featured the bunker below the White House, and they never once go to that bunker in this scene, which they should have done. They could have, gotten something good like those 2 movies that came out last year. They both featured the bunker in those.
Yes. Yes, the bunker. It's very famous. Don't know why they just went to this random safe house. So, or safe room, rather. Before they open...
Which doesn't exist, I'm pretty sure. I was looking on the map, and there's nothing like that based on what I know about the White House, and I know a lot.
Yeah. So before he opened the doors, Jack opened this can of gas that would ignite with any kind of spark. So Jack's plan was to kill himself to get the president to safety, but of course Bill goes ahead and offers himself instead, once again foiling Jack's suicidal tendencies.
This is one of the first few times that he tries that this season.
So Bill is dead. Most of Juma's men and stuff are taken captive. I think
captive. They're killed.
They're killed. They're killed in an
arrested.
explosion. They're arrested. La la la. This is the end of Act 3, which goes into Act 4 with Stark Wood. Basically, now we're back to John Voight.
And we finally get some. We finally figure out what's John Voight doing, because we've seen him in Redemption, and we knew that he was related to Dubaku and Juma, like he was supplying weapons.
I don't know. He looks nothing like them.
No, he was supplying weapons for their war, they showed that in the Redemption movie, and so we knew they were all part of the same conspiracy, but we never really knew what his role was in it until this point.
Okay, so his name is Jonas Hodges. We're gonna call him Mr. Sir. So Mr. Sir, he's back. He's this weapons contractor or private military guy or something, and he's been controlling everything from the get-go, or at least we think. And he gave this thing gallons of weapons, and the information was on the drive in Dubaku's stomach, and now he's back. So the next threat has to do with a shipment of biological weapons that are some kind of nerve agent or something that is something in between the nerve gas and the virus, and Jack has to stop it.
Yeah, Hodges gave Juma the information about how to get into the White House, in response to get those weapons, because they were being shipped from Sangala because they were developed in Sangala by Starkwood.
Yes.
I wanted to say Stark Industries. I still wanted to.
Stark.
But no, they were developed by Starkwood, and then they were shipped over by Juma and his crew. So that's kind of how they were connected.
Right.
That's why he was helping them out. He helped them out. They helped him out.
But the thing is, Jack, he can't stop this threat very well, or with anyone's help, I should say, because everyone thinks he's an untrustworthy rogue agent that's just off killing people because he's getting, framed at this point. And everyone's quick to believe it. So he had to do it himself and with Tony. And through Secretary Mayer, he and Tony track the shipment of these weapons to a shipping container that's already in Washington, D.C., where Jack is able to drive away the weapons in this big truck, but at the same time, Tony is taken hostage by Mr. Sir's men. Sometime during the escape, the weapons burst open or something, and Jack is exposed, even a little bit briefly before some bad guys came and stole the weapons back. Wouldn't those bad guys that stole the weapons back also be exposed?
No, he shut it off.
Oh, he
went inside the container, held his breath for a few minutes, and then shut it off.
I guess that holding his breath didn't really...
I don't know why. Well, I guess he was saying, maybe I was just exposed a little bit. I want to prevent as much as I possibly can, just in case.
Yeah. So Jack's exposed, and the FBI has to find the the weapons, and they have to save his life or something from. They have to help him out because he's exposed. And it turns out the exposure of the bioweapon has actually infected him, and he is going to die. Turns out it is some kind of weaponized version of Parkinson's disease. Basically, Jack can't go into the field because, he's shaken, and he's losing his memory, and he's seizing and all this fun stuff. So he's kind of kept back in FBI while Larry and everybody else goes out to Hodges' headquarters where Tony is to stop this threat.
And of course, this infection is going to kill him within a day.
Of course it is.
As usual.
And while they get to this place where Tony is being held, they are met with Hodges' personal army, which kind of forces the FBI to leave, but Tony is able to sneak away, and he finds out that Hodges actually has a bunch of missiles connected to this bioweapon, and they're aimed at 13 U.S. cities. Tony rigs these missiles with an explosive.
I wonder why he did that.
He rigs them with an explosive, and this explosive, it'll ignite the fuel, and it will destroy these bioweapons. And boom, all of them explode. He actually gets it done, and the threat is over. Or is it because apparently this was a good time as any to say, hey guys, Tony really is a terrorist, and there's one more bioweapon readily available. And it's going on to Act 5. Alright, so
here's the thing, Tony is bad.
Yes.
So, this whole time, so he's been back and forth. It started out bad, then we thought he was good, and now he's bad again, and by the end he's going to try to claim that he's good again. But the problem is here, he is now in control of one of the bioweapons, and he's going to try to set it off. And the idea is Hodges Starkwood is just one of many companies that are all these private military and other things similar to that, and they're all, starting to run out of money, and they're being shut down, and the government's basically wanting to get rid of them because of the new president. She doesn't like them very much. And so they're all kind of in on this conspiracy, and they wanted to create all these big explosions and then make the government look weak, and then kind of basically take control of the government themselves because they didn't like what was happening in the government. And so apparently Tony is in on this whole thing. But here's the problem. This is one of those twists that don't make any sense.
It's because these actors get their script one day in advance or whatever. And
well, yeah, but the writers should be aware of these kinds of things too. So when we talked about Tony rigging the missiles with explosives earlier, so this would not be a big problem if Tony was ordered to do this, but he wasn't. He called the president. He said that there are these missiles, and then he voluntarily destroyed the missiles himself. He came up with the idea, and he did it himself. If he was really in on this whole conspiracy, why would he do that? That makes no sense whatsoever.
Then again, they kind of answered that the last episode.
Right, they did. But if he wanted to look good with his company, then still, I would think he would have been continuing to help them out.
Let's talk about this company he kind of works for. Basically, there's a bunch of different people that are unseen. They're all anonymous. They're all working against this faux Skype program that they're talking with. And they're all trying to decide what to do with this canister, this last canister of whatever the heck it is, bioweapon. And he gets them to go along with setting it off.
One idea is to keep it and process more of the bioweapon and then set off a bunch of attacks after 6 months or so of developing the weapon more. And Tony says, no, let's just set off this one, which I guess kind of makes sense with the last episode and his intentions, where he thinks he doesn't really want to hurt many innocent people, but he's more but he still needs to get in good with the company.
Yeah. He basically, here's what he does. He gets a scapegoat, a Muslim scapegoat, to take the fall for the attacks. And they get this guy to participate by surprise, threatening his family. And they set him on a train and discreetly put a bomb with the canister under the seat in front of him. And Jack actually gets through to this guy after finding his family and tells him that tells him to find that bomb and rush it outside. So the guy does. Security tries to stop him, but he holds up the bomb and shouts to everyone to get away. He gets out. Jack finally shows up on the scene, grabs the bomb, and a bit of deja vu comes rolling in as he tosses it into the secure and airtight hazmat container before it goes off.
It's happened a few times now in the series.
Right. The threat is over, but the deja vu is
Thankfully, nobody's arm had to be chopped off this time.
Right. So now we're on to the final and 6th act of the season.
Really? 6?
Yeah.
Wow.
Kim is in trouble again. She's about to leave. She's going back to L.A. She's at the airport. But for some reason, she always has to be put in trouble for... it almost seemed completely random, but it started to make sense a little bit later. Some random people in the airport find her as she's heading back. And she was on her way, and these guys are watching her this whole time because Tony's telling them to.
Yep.
And
Tony's company.
And basically, these people call Jack and say, "We have your daughter. Set Tony free, or we're gonna kill her." And as far as Kim's troubles go, I know it's kind of a shout out to the first season, but at the same time, we have to give her a single season where she isn't in trouble. It also doesn't make a lot of sense at first, but then you think, who even knew she was there? That Tony did know she was there. So he had her people following her. It started to make a little bit more sense, but still, it's a little old. So Jack sets Tony free, but Tony commences to kidnap Jack to, quote-unquote, harvest his organs, which still have the pathogen inside.
Well, they tried to extract it out of his spinal fluid, but they said that there wasn't enough in there and that they would have to pull it out of his organs. And then Jack wakes up and kills everybody.
Yes, he wakes up, just destroys everybody, even though he's, dying. And
Yeah, okay, first of all, they knocked him out to try to get this spinal fluid stuff.
Yes,
and I'm
they
thinking,
knocked him
okay,
out.
Jack's been awake for 23 hours now. If they're going to knock him out, he's not going to wake back up. Realistically, if you get knocked out after being awake for 23 hours, you're probably going to stay asleep for a while.
Yeah, but it's like he got...
And he's sick. He's about to die.
Yeah, it's like he got injected with adrenaline, and then he just started
Which
killing
has
everyone.
happened a few times in this series.
Yeah, he just had a little bit of...
Deja vu.
Borrowed adrenaline. I don't know. He gets away, though, but Tony again stops him and informs him that all along he was trying to bring justice to the guy behind everything, including David Palmer's execution, because there always has to be somebody else.
There is yet another person in the chain of command with the David Palmer
They did not need
conspiracy.
to bring that up, by the way.
Well, the reason they did that is because the person that was behind the David Palmer thing was also behind
because Michelle's death. But
and they wanted to give Tony a good reason
for returning to the show.
Well, a reason for everything he's been doing this season, which I think kind of does help out a little bit with the problems of the earlier twist, but still, first of all, I don't think it fits Tony's character very well. I understand that he's going to be mad for all these things with Michelle's death and stuff, but Jack says it perfectly that you're destroying everything you worked for. Michelle would be ashamed, things like this.
Yeah,
he's killing innocent people. He doesn't avoid killing innocent people. He's still doing these bad things. That he's still doing terrorism.
It doesn't make this whole end act doesn't make a lot of sense.
I would say not the whole.
Does
I would say the
enough.
last two acts.
It does enough to explain it, but it just
is the Tony twist in the last two acts.
No, Tony is a terrorist in the
Act
so
5.
The
last two. I would say the first two-thirds of the season are actually fairly well done. David doesn't agree as much. I think the Jonas Hodges thing, which they set up in Redemption, I think that that whole story with Jonas Hodges, Juma, and Dubaku, I think it's a tightly a well-constructed conspiracy, and I think it plays out rather well all the way up to the point when Jonas Hodges gets arrested. But after that point, I think the whole season falls apart.
So let's wrap up the season here.
I do like the thing with Jack being contaminated, but that did start earlier.
Yeah.
In fairness.
Here, let's wrap up the season. Tony's gonna strap a bomb to Jack's chest to blow Alan away, and before this could happen,
which is the boss of that company he's been going against.
And before this could happen, Renee and the rest of the FBI apprehend Tony and stop him from killing Alan, and then they arrest Alan Wilson. Jack is then escorted to the hospital, put under a coma until he dies. Renee decides to turn into Jack Bauer to interrogate Alan Wilson against FBI protocol. We never see the interrogation, we just know it's going to happen. Kim Bauer comes to Jack's side to save his life after all, and then the season is done.
There is one thing about the last two acts that I do think is a pretty decent storyline, and that's the storyline, the subplot with the president's daughter.
Yeah, that's one of the subplots. Is Olivia Taylor and the hitman. She orders the death of Hodges's.
Yeah, Hodges's.
Mr. Sir. And
I think that storyline is actually probably the best of the last two acts.
It's actually all linked together with everything that's been going on.
So it continues the whole Hodges thing, which I think was the stronger story of the season. I think the Tony stuff and the Kim stuff was a little weak.
Let's think about the whole White House subplot. We got Allison Taylor and her dilemma with Sengala. Mm-hmm. Sengala was getting ordered by this guy named Hodge, or whatever his name is. Hodges is. I don't know. Hodges. And Hodges is the guy that's responsible for Olivia Taylor's brother getting killed.
The president's son, which we referenced
and
in
then
Redemption.
The whole first gentleman trying to figure out who killed his son was also one of the subplots.
Him getting shot.
And then they find out that is Hodges. And then so Olivia Taylor then wants to kill Hodges. This is all linked together. I like the White House subplot. It's all linked together, and there's 3 different subplots that are linked together.
I think the White House has got the most consistent storyline to the season.
It does. That one's actually throughout the entire season. So,
and
that's like the best plot of the season.
I like what happens with her, because she decides to hire this hitman, right? And then she gets this phone call. He's like, wire these $250,000 to my account. And instead of doing that, she changes her mind at the last minute, hits cancel, but it happens anyway. And so she's screwed because she didn't pay this guy, so she has to pay him first of all, and then second of all, she has to cover up everything she's done, and it does not end well for her.
It does not end well for her, and I'm guessing I can't really remember how it ends up for the president either, because it can't.
I don't know what happens after that.
It can't end well for her either, because her daughter's an insane person.
I think the whole scene, the last episode, with the consequences of Olivia's actions and how the president handles that is some of the best stuff with that subplot, and I think it's some of the best stuff with that president in the show.
Right. So let's talk about some notes here. Jack, last time I said that Kiefer had a great performance due to his scarring history with the Chinese, and the same almost applies here for acting when Jack gets sick from the bioweapon. He's losing his memory, he's convulsing, he's having seizures. This is probably the worst that you've ever actually seen from Jack Bauer character by far, and it's pretty scary. But I was also saying, by this point in the show, I remember there being news of a season 8 coming out, and that this kind of diminished my fear that he would die.
But as I pointed out while we were watching this show, that in this time when we were watching this show, they did announce a new season, but there was a lot of rumors that they were going to kill off Jack and do a new season with a different cast. A lot of people were assuming that would be Renee then, because they were setting up Renee to be basically the next Jack in this whole season, it seemed like.
Yeah.
And so when the last episode happened, there was the whole thing with Kim was going to do this procedure, but there was a very little chance it was going to work. So it was still a cliffhanger. Would Jack come back or would Jack die, and they would do a new season without him? Most people thought, they'll probably just bring Jack back because you can't have 24 without Jack, but there was still a possibility. I've seen it happen in other shows like Scrubs. They brought back Scrubs with a whole new cast, basically.
Yeah.
And it didn't work. But it has worked in other shows, so it can work. But, it just depends. I think with 24, it's very, very centered around Jack. So something like 24, I don't think it would work very good without him.
As far as Tony goes, as much as I used to love Tony's character, and as much as I know that it's Carlos Bernard acting in these scenes, I don't believe that's really Tony. I get that he hates the world for its role in Michelle's death and all, but there's just a difference between making a statement and killing people in cold blood. Tony is just outright killed people, and there's just no way I could see him going that route, no matter how much he hates the world. Not only that, but his double, triple, quadruple agent plot, whatever it was just over the top to the point where I'm still confused. I have no idea who he's working for. I don't, even if it's just himself, I still don't get it. And they play way too much on his character, and I think that it would just have been smarter if they just kept him dead.
I think Tony was great in season 2 and 4, but a lot of the other stuff they did with him was not as good. Season 1, he was kind of a jerk.
Yeah.
And he was jealous with Nina and Jack. He thought they were still going out. And then season 3. No, season 3 he was okay, I think. Season 3 is when he I think 2 and 3 he's probably pretty good. But and 4 he's alright because he comes back and helps Jack out willingly, without being in CT. So I think 2, 3, and 4, season 2, 3, and 4 he's pretty good. Season 5 and season 1 and season 7 are kind of disappointing Tony seasons. Season 5 he comes back after his wife dies, and he kind of tries to kill Henderson, and then supposedly dies himself. Season 1 he was kind of a jerk, and then season 6 he was this completely inconsistent character that made no sense.
Yeah. So, and then we have Kim coming back for a few episodes. Yay, that's fun. We all love Kim, or at least the idea of her. She's not the best actress in the world. But her role, as vital as it was a tad ruined with them playing the personal disaster card again. She's worth more to the series if she's not constantly in danger. However, I have to say, her having a daughter named Terry is a nice touch, and her having to save her father for once is actually kind of poetic as it comes full circle. And I think they should have stopped the series there when it comes full circle.
I remember liking season 8 though. I don't remember how much though, so I could be completely off on that. It was just that we got to see, I just like 24, so it could just be I remember liking everything about 24. But on a rewatch, I don't know if it'll be as good, but we'll see.
The season as a whole without the doubt has the most acts. I don't remember how much acts the 8th one has. I don't even really remember much about it. The more the acts a season has, I think the more it feels less like a 24-hour day. 2 or maybe 3 acts are doable and believable as far as real time goes, and focusing on one act for half a season has a lot of great story development. This has 6 acts. Let's recap: the CIP device, the First Gentleman's kidnapping, the White House getting attacked, Starkwood Industries, Tony's last hurrah, and kidnapping Kim once again. And out of all these acts, the strongest and most interesting that I believe, at least, was the White House down scenario. And just think about how strong a season would have been if, from the first episode, they said they were going to break into the White House, and throughout the episodes, they're trying to figure out exactly how to do that.
I think the CIP device and the bioweapon are pretty strong threats.
I just think the season as a whole would have been a lot better if it was just the White House part, at least for the first, act. And it would have been like, kind of like Prison Break, and being how smart written it was. But it wasn't. All it basically did was, we're going to break into the White House, and boom, you just see them do it.
I would have liked more White House stuff. I would have liked them to expand it to at least like 4 episodes at the minimum. They did, there was 1 episode for the break-in and then 1 episode for the escape, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
I would have liked at least 2 more episodes, minimum, probably 3 or 4 more, actually. It would have been fine. I think the CIP device is a good threat because it's, you don't know where, what they're going to control. They could control the airplanes like they did. They could control the electric company. They could control anything that the government controls. If you look at, like, Die Hard 4, for example, that's kind of the stuff that they could be able to do with that. They also did the same thing in Die Hard 2 with the air traffic control, but it went beyond that. There was other things they could have done. Like, I think they had some gas company or something? They were going to do something else as well with it, but it never went through. I think that was a good threat, and I think the bio weapon is a good threat too, because they had so many different missiles. They could have attacked so many different cities with that. I think that was a very strong attack. They probably could have gone further with that as well. But I would have liked to see more of White House.
Yeah. So let's compare and contrast some seasons together. We got the best season overall last time. We both said day 5. What do you think? Still day 5? Day 5?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Best threat last time. We both said, day 3. Virus.
Okay.
And best Jack last time we said day 6. Mostly because of his scarring and from that point how he grew as a character, and we saw both good sides and bad sides to Jack, and seeing how he grew and maintained his scarring and then turned into himself again, kind of a deal.
I think there's a lot good with Jack in this season, but I don't know if I would say it's better than 6 for Jack.
Yeah, I think I'm staying with 6 here, because when I think of the perfect Jack, the best acting and the best, as far as development goes and how personal it is and how all together it is, I think that works better for 6 than 7. I think 7 is more forgettable than anything else.
I think 7 had potential. The first,
his getting sick is cool because it's
right.
You don't see that kind of sickness in any other TV show.
Right, and I think the story with Tony and the whole conspiracy could have played out really well, and they could have done something great with character development there as well, between Tony and Jack, but they just didn't. It ended off poorly, and so I think overall season 6 is definitely better for Jack. But Jack did have a lot of good. Even though the whole season as itself was not the greatest, I think a lot of the best parts of it were Jack. As well as some of the White House stuff, and yeah.
The best written season, we both said day 5 last time. I am still sticking with that one.
Yeah.
And now worst season. This season is a contender for worst season.
I don't think I would.
I'll
place it.
say why it should and why it shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons here is because, first of all, there's 6 acts, and second of all, it's not very original. While we were recording this, I just put down how much it reminds you of other seasons. Kim getting kidnapped and being in danger / Jack being forced to do what the bad guys want because of Kim, and the incriminating audio clip that Olivia Taylor was dealing with. That all reminds you of season 1 things. The missiles will remind you.
Actually, I believe the audio thing was season 2.
No, it was audio clip of Keith.
Oh, the Keith thing. I was thinking of the 3 countries or whatever thing from season 2.
That's also season 2. You can put that into season 2. Season 2 and 4 both dealt with missiles.
Season 2 did not have a missile. It had a bomb. It wasn't a missile.
Okay, all right. But that's season 4 is a missile. But we can say including an audio clip for season 2.
Yeah.
Season 3 it had a lot of things that reminded you of the virus itself.
Sort of, yeah. It had a similar idea.
Nerve gas, for sure. There's some nerve agents that were in this show that you're going to think, wait a second. There's Jack holding his breath. There's all this fun stuff. This is like the nerve gas again. David Palmer's conspiracy had to be brought up. That was strongest in season 6 with all Jack's family and everything, how linked together it was. That was mostly talked about in season 6, and they brought it back up in
season 5 and 6, really.
Yeah, season 5 was more along the lines of putting whoever was immediately in control of it. Season 6 was finding out more about who was dealing.
The whole chain of command.
And because of all that, it feels so much not very original. But
I think the many stories it had is not automatically a qualifier for it being bad. If they could pull them off.
It's not only that, but all the acts, like I said, the more acts you have, the less it feels like real time, and 24 is all about real time.
Well, I don't think so. I think if you can, I think it's possible to pull off 6 acts, 7 acts in a 24-hour period if they are done very well. And they can be done very well. Like I said, the first, I would say 4 acts are done very well. I think if they continued in that same style for the last 2 acts, it actually would have been possibly one of my more favorite. I don't know if it would beat 5 for me, but it would have been higher than it is now.
Now, the only reason I remember from there's two main reasons why we said season 4 was the worst. One of them is because of all the acts. It's a very cluttered season, and 2 is because Habib Marwan was very much a Dr. Claw-like character. I'll get you next time, Gadget / Bauer.
That was part of it, but the problem with the many acts in season 4 was not the count, but the fact that they were almost completely unrelated. It's just like, okay, let's do this, let's do that. It didn't feel like there was
He's gonna pull off his next threat. But there's a little bit of that. It didn't
feel like there was any consistency in the story.
There's a little bit of that in this season 2, though.
I think towards the end that's very, very true, especially with all the the Kim stuff and Tony the Terrorist and
not only Tony the Terrorist
company and
the season 6 also had Tony harvesting Jack's organs.
Right,
That was the stupidest thing I've ever seen in 24 by far. And there was in the beginning I was a little worried about the whole Dr. Claw thing with Dubaku, because he got away like 3 times. And that was worrying me too, because if you remember, Habib Marwan got away 4 times.
But I think they did it smartly. I think the way he got away actually made sense from a smart writing perspective in Dubaku. It wasn't just, I got away.
It was a little bit smarter than season 4, but I would not call this season a very smartly written season.
I would say the first half to 2/3 is actually very well written.
I don't know. A lot of it, I could see...
They clearly didn't have a great end goal in mind. I think that was a big problem.
This is definitely
not...
But
if it ended where Jonas Hodgins got arrested, it almost would have been perfect.
This is just not my go-to season.
Right. I think it would have been higher if they had continued with the stretched out the Hodges thing and ended with that instead of doing the whole Tony as a terrorist thing and the Kim being.
It's just that they tried way too hard. Why didn't they just have 1 to 2 acts and have Jack dying the whole time?
At least half the time.
at least half the time. Get them sick at the end of the first act, and then have them have to deal with that in the second.
Yeah, they could have cleaned up the writing a little bit. I think if it was the writer's strike and it made it a 16-episode series, I think it could have been one of the strongest seasons. But because they had to fill out 24 episodes, I think they got a little... they started running out of ideas towards the end, and they just kind of had to come up with random crap that didn't make any sense. And I think that kind of really ruined it a lot. I don't think it's as bad as season 4, though. So I'm going to keep season 4 as the worst for me.
I don't know. Part of me feels like it's even more cluttered.
It's got more threads in them, but I think they're more tightly woven together and smarter written than season 4.
I think I'm gonna say day 4 is the worst, but I'm gonna say day 7 is very close second. As far as best non-Jack character, I'm gonna list off the characters. We got Aaron Pierce, Bill Buchanan's last season, the First Gentleman Henry Taylor, Ethan, whatever his name is.
Kanan, not wrong.
Rom. Ethan Kanan, E.K. Dubaku, Janice Gold, Jonas Hodges, of course that's John Voight, Kim Bauer, Larry Moss, Olivia Taylor, President Allison Taylor, Renee Walker, or Tony Almeida.
There's also Juma.
I'm skipping Juma.
He was only in like a few episodes anyway, but okay. For me, for the first half of the season, I would have said a very obvious Renee. I think Renee, David doesn't agree with me, but I think Renee was a very strong character. I think they had great character development with her, where she started off like the by the book character, like you would see with like some of the characters in the past, like Chappelle or George Mason or something like that in the beginning of the series, where a lot of the characters were by the book, and then throughout the series she kind of adapted, started becoming a little bit more like Jack, but that kind of shook her up. She had problems with it more. She dealt with it like a human being instead of like Jack, like a robot. And so I thought there was some good stuff with that, some good character development between Jack and Renee as well. Some little bit beginning of something. But however, even though the last act and the last 2 acts were crap, like I said, that whole storyline with the president's daughter was, I think, very well done, and I think the president herself is a very strong character. I think she might even be a better president than David Palmer. Dare I say it?
No, she was not.
David Palmer. He's always looked at as one of the best presidents in U.S. history, even though he's fake. But he did compromise a lot. He did do some things that weren't great. He would listen to his wife. He would listen to Wayne. These things that he always ended up getting him in trouble. But this Allison Taylor, she always made the right decision.
Well, I'm not saying about right decisions, wrong decisions. I'm saying almost every single time, she had no idea what was going on with any of these threats. Like, people were telling her, to find out the bad guy is Tony. Tony?
Yeah.
So they found out that this is this. What? And they're like this.
Some of that was, some of that got a little annoying. The writing there wasn't very strong. But I think her character...
It's like she wasn't on top of everything. She was always, like, out of the loop of everything that was going on.
She's not like in CT or in FBI here, so like that's understandable. It is a little annoying that they have to update us on that a little bit, but I think her personal character and her leadership was very strong. But I do think I prefer Renee over her overall. I think it became very close, especially with that ending where she chose to do the right thing and send her daughter to prison or whatever.
When you said that it would be obvious who you would pick for the non-Jack character, I thought you were talking about Tony.
No.
Because, Tony's back. He's back.
Tony
It's
is
Tony
one-
Almeida.
Tony's one of the worst characters of the season.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty bad character. I think my favorite non-Jack character is also Renee.
Yeah.
There's
other
the
good
thing is-
characters.
The thing is, I like the White House story, but not so much the characters.
Olivia Taylor has a good story, but I don't like her character at all. She's very annoying.
She's pretty dumb. But
she's always doing the wrong thing, so she's complete contrast to her mother, and she's just kind of an annoying personality. But I like her story.
I like the story that
Larry
there.
Moss.
Aaron Pierce had a good one.
Larry Moss was decent. I was actually thinking he would be the mole in the beginning, but his story was okay. But he was kind of a two-bit.
What I would say is that this was I think this was Ethan's best season. As in the end there.
I don't think he's been in very much.
He's been in a few seasons.
He's been in the background. He
Yeah.
hasn't really been having much of a role anyway.
He kicked butt in the end when he was pretty much revealing Olivia's.
Yeah, he was a decent character, but he just didn't have a huge role to play in the series.
Aaron Pierce was pretty cool this season, but he was kind of just walking around.
He wasn't hardly in it at all. He was
He was a lot more than last season. Last season he was in like a couple episodes.
I think he was just in the last 2 to 3 acts in this season, though.
Bill, his role was interesting this season as the
he had a good
the director of fake CTU. He ended his life heroically and stuff like that, so that's cool.
He had a good send-off, but I don't think his character was very strong.
I wasn't a huge fan.
Part of the series.
I wasn't a huge fan of the whole Singala plot. The Dubaku I didn't think was a very big character in 24 Enemies as far as they go.
Dubaku wasn't a big character, but he was part of a bigger conspiracy, and I think that conspiracy itself was well done.
I wanted Tony to be a better character.
Yep.
I remember thinking that when I first saw him.
There was potential, but they completely ruined it.
Yeah, they crapped on his character pretty hard.
Yeah.
But that is the that's the 7th season of 24. The 8th season we're going to talk about next week. Mark your calendars. May 5th, the same day that the first episode of Live Another Day airs.
We'll release it before the episode, obviously.
Yeah, we're going to be releasing it in the morning of May 5th, so you can listen to that before you see the first episode of the new season, and then we're going to release podcast for Live Another Day, the first episode, the next day on the 6th, with Timbot and everything. So look out for that. And so we'll catch you next time. My name is Dave, and I am the CTU agent.
I am Andy, and I'm the analyst.
That's right. And we'll catch you next time on Smaller on the Outside. Subscribe to our channel and comment on us on Stitcher, WordPress, Podomatic, iTunes. And yep, and peace out.
Peace out.
Thank you for listening to Smaller on the Outside. Make sure to subscribe to our channel and visit our website at sodapodcast.wordpress.com.